Hello, I am Chica, the host of the Connecting the Dots series. Welcome to Connecting the Dots, where we share, explore, and celebrate the unique tales that shape who we are. Each story we tell is like a thread, weaving together the experiences that define us. By sharing our stories, we not only find common ground, but also learn valuable lessons from each other. This conversation is about understanding how our past our influences are present and discovering the incredible insights that come from connecting the dots in our lives. Today, we have Boye, Bibi, Ashenuga. For those who may be coming across you for the first time, before we delve into the real story behind the titles, the letters before your name, I have three questions for you. All right.
Ooh.
So the first question is your name and current focus and why that is your focus. So when I say focus, it could be something about your latest collection, something you're currently working on, something you're excited about, and then also your focus. Why that is your focus.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Boye. People call me Bibi. My last name is Shenaga. I'm the owner and creative director of ChicNiCity, a brand that offers ethnic inspired pieces for women who want to experience culture, who want to experience fashion. Sorry, can I start again?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so Chicnicity is a blend of my heritage and my lifestyle in Boston.
Okay, so I
And
think people connect with that more.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you come up with that your elevator pitch and then it doesn't go well. So let me freestyle it.
Yeah, freestyle
So
it.
yeah, like you said, we're talking nothing formal. So it's just Chicnicity is a brand that represents my Nigerian heritage and my current modern lifestyle as a woman living a dynamic lifestyle in Boston. So Chicnicity means chic in your ethnicity in any city you're in the world. Okay,
Oh,
and you asked my current focus. So
yes.
Chicnicity, this is a ninth year
Oh,
and a lot has happened. And for me, 2025, my focus is giving back. So when I say giving back, it starts with, teaching, speaking to, the new generation of people who want to go into fashion. And also, good news, I was just appointed a board of trustee at the school.
I was gonna get to that. We'll
When
talk
I
about
moved,
that some more.
yeah, when I moved,
Congratulations.
thank you, Chica. Thank you. So, being on the board is another way of giving back to, a school that helped me tremendously when I moved to the US. Also, another focus is branding because we're trying to get our name, that brand out there. So those are the things we're looking to do in 2025.
Exciting, exciting, exciting. All right. So, question number two.
Yes.
One fact that stands out. So, it could be a memorable fact about yourself that highlights maybe your creativity or maybe experience in the fashion world or even in your, outside of the fashion world. So, maybe if you taught a class, somebody you've styled. I'm just giving you examples. So, one fact that stands out about you.
One thing that stands out about me, which unconsciously I will do, but now getting older, I've been able to define it.
Hmm.
So my love language is encouraging people. And I,
Exhortation.
yeah. So I was in Nigeria, for 7 weeks. And my sister, my immediate sister, who I grew up with, went to the same primary school, secondary school, university. And she said something, said, Boy, you should be a motivational speaker. I'm like, why? She said, you always put a positive spin on everything. You
Oh,
encourage people. And I'm like, that's true. And it's my love language. So that's one fact about me. I can rah people to do anything. So, and it's something I've come to enjoy, define, and try and give back to the society, friends, family, people around me.
Okay, so I know who to have on my team
Yes.
on those days when you're asking yourself, how did we get here and why am I doing
Yes.
this? And I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of us can relate to that, having
Yes.
such days, right? It's not unique to
Yes.
yourself or to me or to
Mm-hmm.
people in our circle. It's just, part of life, right? That there will be some
Adulting.
days that are
Yes.
up and some days that are down, and there's some
Mm-hmm.
days that are in between, and we don't know, okay, which way are we going?
Yeah.
Which way are things going? So
Yes.
I can completely relate to that. So the third question is, um, having shared based on what you shared in question one and question two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how would you connect that to our current setting, which is here, where we are today? Remember, this is all about connecting the dots. You introduced yourself. You told us about your focus this year, and then what you've identified about one fact about yourself that stands out.
Mm-hmm. So if I getting your question right, so everything that I've said, how is it connecting
Yes,
to
today.
okay.
Yes. Hmm.
Also being here with you, Chika, I will say first and foremost, we met on Instagram
That's right.
and we
That's right.
have become, a resource for one another. So being here today is, tying it back, connecting it back to the fact that,
Mhm.
I'm here encouraging you like you have encouraged me so many times. It's also giving back to our community as Nigerians in the diaspora, talking
Mhm.
about, the highs and lows. Because, like you said, it's easy on Instagram to see what we're doing and think, oh, they have it right. But
Mhm.
there's a lot behind, getting
Yeah.
to that place where people think, you're successful. So having this conversation is a way of giving back, like I said, 2025, a way of giving back, encouraging you like you have encouraged me. And also, hey, when YouTube is marketing, it's a branding. So that's how I'm connecting all the dots.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful. And when you talked about your one of the areas of focus for you is raising brand awareness,
Yes.
right? I got thinking about, okay, what are the um, non-traditional or non-conventional ways of promoting brand awareness? And the reason I say that is because if you remember in the beginning, when you were
Mhm.
talking about your elevator speech, sometimes we come prepared a certain kind of way,
Yes.
but then we soon realize that, okay, who are we really speaking to? Are these investors or are these people who are coming across our brands for the first time? Right.
Hmm.
And that's why I like the way you were able to connect it and just break it down for us. And, like I said, the high level pitch, right,
Yes.
might work in certain environments, right? But
Mhm.
if it's somebody who is just coming across this chat for the first time, they're like, oh, okay. The two things I think you highlighted, your you said culture and style,
Yes.
correct? Is that what I think
Yes.
that's what you said, culture and
Yes.
style. And
Yes.
anybody can connect with that, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
what ChicNiCity stands for, because I'm sure they hear ChicNiCity, they're like, what does that mean? Is it chick in the city? Is it what's that series they used to have back in the days?
Sex in the
Sex-
city.
Sex-
Actually,
yeah,
when I think about ChicNiCity,
yeah.
I'm a big fan of Sarah Jessica Parker, who was
Okay.
in Sex and the City, and that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to see, heritage inspired pieces, something
Mm,
chic, and
I
not,
see.
a costume. And that
Yes. Mhm.
so you're spot on in saying that, tying it with Sex and the City. Yes, I wanted people to see our pieces as pieces you could wear in any city,
Mm.
around the world and be chic and sophisticated. So yeah, you're quite spot on that.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So again, congratulations on being appointed a board of trustees member at the School of Fashion Design, and that's in Peabody,
Boston,
in Boston, Boston.
yes,
All
in
right. So
Boston, the city of
just
Boston.
to be clear, so it's Peabody, the because they do have Peabody in Baltimore, right?
Yes.
So is this Peabody the city? Is this Peabody the school, or Peabody? What is Peabody?
So Okay, so Chika, in
Mhm,
New England, we call it
mhm.
PBD.
Oh, puberty. Puberty.
Yeah, which is, when I moved here initially, I remember my mom would say Peabody. I'm like, "Mom, no, mom, it's Peabody." So we call it Peabody, and that's the city I live in, which
Okay.
is like 30 minutes north of Boston.
Okay. Okay.
But the
That's a good
school
reference
is
point.
called the School of Fashion Design, and it's in the great city of Boston. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what did you say, Peabody?
Yeah, Peabody. Yeah.
All right. All right. I learned something new.
I
All right.
know.
So, and I'm sure this is something that both in our personal and also in our professional endeavors um, is a familiar, will I say, emotion, fear. What part has fear played in your journey so far
Fear,
as a business owner?
fear drives me
Hmm.
because it's natural to have fear as a
Mhm,
human being, right?
mhm,
It
mhm,
drives me. Sometimes it tries to paralyze me, but I refuse. If
mhm,
you're a small business owner, every day you wake up thinking, okay, how am I going to make that money? How am I going to reach more people? Why
mhm.
isn't this selling? Why, is this selling more? There are a lot of things you have to deal with. So, to answer your question, fear can be a tool that drives you if you allow it.
Mm.
Fear can be torment, but if you know that in life, fear can also drive you, you work with it. And that's adulting. I tell my kids every time the difference between the people who lead and people who follow is what you do from your, how you work with your mistakes, with your
Mm.
failures. I
Mm.
fail every day. As a small business owner, it's a lot. We fail, but it's how you handle the failure that determines, how you move. So to, sum
That's
it
a
up,
that's a
yeah,
very important point. And I'm even thinking for and maybe you can go into your background. I know that you are a trained lawyer.
yes.
Yes, you're a trained lawyer, and at least generally speaking, some would argue that at least a career in law will guarantee you a steady income.
Yes. Yes.
You leave the security of that
Mm.
and you delve into fashion. I don't know if you had any prior experience in the fashion business before you delved into it, or is it something that came about maybe by identifying that there was a need, and at some point you decided, you know what, this is going to be my primary focus. So walk us through that process. How do you go from a law degree
Yeah.
to being a fashion business entrepreneur or fashion entrepreneur?
So this is a story that it's really dear to my heart. How went from law into fashion.
All
So I
right.
grew up in Nigeria. I went to University of Lagos for my pre-law, what we would call pre-law in the US. But it might sound cliche, but as a kid, I've always just loved fashion. I was telling someone that when I was younger, all
Mhm.
I wanted to know, okay, if we're going for a beach party, what are you going to wear? I'm sure I was like a pest to all my friends because I always wanted to figure out what people were going to wear,
All right.
help you figure out what you were going to wear. And Chika, can you believe that when I finished secondary school and I was going to, get into University of Lagos, I had a journal of what I was going to wear for every day for 3 months.
Wow.
I just loved, fashion. I will dream it. And also with the influence of my mom, who was a very stylish person, a
Mm.
very kind, stylish, and classy person. So I think that also rubbed off on me because she will tell us first impression counts. 90% of what people are going to think about you is, formed within 3 minutes of them seeing you. But I like the fact that she would say that, but also she would drum it into us that be kind, treat people well. So that started, my story with fashion. And while I was in uni, like I saw some girls, wearing this really nice Ankara dresses. And for a long time in Nigeria, we wouldn't, especially for people my age, was 18, 19, 20. We were so besorted by, what the media will show us as in, okay, you have to look more American.
You mean Western media?
Yeah, Western media. Let me correct.
And also, just for context, Ankara is
Wax print, which is indigenous or known to West Africa, that we wear a lot, brightly colored, patterned fabrics. So then I just saw this girls wearing these dresses and they looked different. And I asked them, where did you get it? They told me, which was in Ibadan, which is far from Lagos.
So that's about an hour drive, or
an hour drive.
Or an hour and a half.
But if you get caught in traffic, maybe 4 hours. So I tapped on my friend called Tola, and I was like, Tola, because she's the adventurous one. And I was like, let's go to Ibadan and figure out where this is being made. Without telling my parents, jumped into a public transport, went to Ibadan, and I got some pieces and I wore them. And everybody would ask me, I love this, I love this. So
was it a ready-to-wear shop that you got the pieces from, or seamstress?
I went to the market, bought the Ankara fabric, right? Found the tailor the girls had used, and made some pieces.
I see.
And I wore them, and people liked it. And in my mind, I'm like, good business opportunity. So
was that your first business?
It wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't.
You were so comfortable with, getting into public transport to go an hour and a half away.
My parents would have killed me. So I'm adventurous like that. If I think something, I'm doing it.
Okay.
So I'm like that. I'm still like that till today. Getting older, I've changed a bit. And with my husband, who's more the planner, I've changed a bit. But when I think something, I do it. So that's can be a plus or a minus. Yeah. So we got the dresses, wore it. People loved it. And I'm like, let me start a business doing this. And then I spoke to my older sister. And she was like, why did you go to Ibadan to buy Ankara fabric when everything is in Lagos? So she took me to Balogun market,
Really?
And then I saw fabric. I found a tailor and I will design. And people would buy it. And then I went to law school. And in law school, that was a year they moved law school to Abuja.
Okay.
And for people who are not familiar with Nigeria, Abuja is in the north, right? A bit more conservative.
It's more in the central,
middle of the country. Middle of the country, but more nothing in their way.
And it's conservative, I would say more conservative,
Yeah. So for law school, it was either you were wearing a suit, which could only be in black, navy, brown, or gray, or you could wear like a traditional attire. So I'm like, okay, who wants to be in a suit in hot, Abuja? So I made pieces, and I remember 300 pieces. It went in 30 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, in law school, and we were not supposed to buy and sell. In fact, if they had caught me, I would have been expelled.
300 pieces. So was this 300 pieces ordered so you could now go and make them?
No. I brought them in because I had already gained traction while I was in Lagos before I went to law school. So, immediately people would see my friends and I wearing, they'll be like, where did you get that? So the first time my 300 pieces came in, I had girls in my room. In fact, we're like, shh, because they, know I was selling. Yeah. And that started it. I will bring in 600 pieces in an hour. Boom, gone. And you will see all my pieces, girls wearing it, And the beauty was, it was we girls or ladies from different universities all over Nigeria. So that was how it started. And by the time I finished law school and I got called to bar, I'm like, mommy, daddy, I do not think I want to practice.
Were they at this point, were they aware of the fact that you are operating a side hustle?
Yes,
Okay.
they did find out, but I bless my parents, liberal parents, not the typical Nigerian parents. All my dad said was that so far you come back with good grades, because I was a very good law student. I would win awards and all. He's like, so far you come back with good grades, we're good. And so they supported me. But when I finished law school and I said, okay, I don't want to practice law, I want to go into fashion design. My dad, who was way ahead of his time, said, so far, you're happy, you're employing people, I'll give you space, a space in
Nice.
a good location. And that was how
Really?
I started.
Oh,
And I
wow.
remember him coming in a few months later, and I had like 10 to 15 tailors. And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, you're doing good. Because my dad was a Pan-Africanist in the sense that, he believed in pulling up other people. So when he saw me employing people, he's like, good to go. And that was
Mm-hmm.
how I started. And I always would say at that time, it wasn't something usual to see someone from my social background to go into fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember an uncle who was a lawyer told me, how can you leave the law profession and become a tailor? No one will marry you. Like marriage was going to be the end. You know how the
I
African
understand.
tradition.
Yeah.
But I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't bothered because my parents supported me. And the
Mm-hmm.
funny thing is that when my husband met me, that was why he was even more interested in getting to know me, because he was like, this is different. For someone who studied law to go into fashion, you must have that chutzpah to, go against the norm. And that was why he said that was one of the things that, he found interesting about me. And so that was how I started my journey into fashion.
Wow.
No knowledge, no skill.
Mhm.
I remember my husband bought me pattern making books, and I had to teach myself because I had tailors who were just tailors, and nothing wrong with just being a
Yeah, I
tailor.
understand what you're saying,
I
and it's also drawing that distinction between who is a fashion designer and who is
is a
a
seamstress or a
seamstress or a
tailor.
tailor.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I knew I wanted more. Chika Ekiti, if you know the Ekiti people, we love knowledge. Practically everyone from where I come from my village, is a professor. So for me, I knew, okay, I wanted more. I needed more knowledge. So I would start reading books to teach myself. And then my husband proposed, we got married, and I moved to America. And I knew I was going back to school.
Oh,
you know,
really?
oh yeah, I knew that. Even before I moved here and we were dating, I knew I was going to go back to school to, figure out, okay, this fashion design, what is it about? Because
Mm.
I like to be excellent in anything I do, which I didn't really know then, but now, because as you get older, you're able to define what you like and
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
what you're about. So I went back to school. Immediately I moved here, looked for a school, found the School of Fashion Design. The reason why I liked the school was that it went straight into fashion. After 7 years of studying law, I didn't want to go to a school where I had to do some other core courses that were not related to fashion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I found them and they were like, oh, no, straight into fashion. And, I enrolled and it was just wonderful. It was a small school, everybody was wonderful.
How long was your program?
It was a 2-year program, but in between I stopped because I got pregnant with my son,
All
and
right.
then I went back. But it was just a wonderful school. People were nice, people were caring. It was like my first family, moving to the US. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful relationship since, I started with the school. So, long story short, that was how I started
That's
my
quite.
foray into fashion.
It sounds like stuff for the movies. Stuff making the movies.
Oh,
Yeah. Maybe one of those these days you should actually look into maybe making that into a movie.
You
I can't even
flatter
begin to
me. Like,
imagine.
do you think people will be interested, Chica?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, and I think it also comes back to this idea of who is your community.
Mm,
Um, Part of the reason why I am of the belief that we should share our stories and share our stories our own way is because um, you don't see a lot of that out here, right?
mm,
And there are many people who can connect with your experience, my experience,
yeah.
but just happen to find themselves, on this side of the pond, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're going through stuff and you think it's unique to you,
Hmm.
but you hear somebody like Boye's story, you're like, oh, I can connect to that. I can connect to the fact that, I'm in school. I don't tell my parents. I jump in a bus or I jump in a cab and I go, I go to Ibadan. That's an hour and a half
Mm-hmm.
away. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that might be my first time there, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is the first time I'm going there as an adult without my
Yes.
parents. And those are the
Yes.
things that connect us. You're like, okay, that's relatable. Or the fact that you are running your side hustle in law school when you
Yes.
know that there's a good chance that if you get busted it
Yeah.
could cost you, it could get you in big trouble. A lot of us
Yes.
can relate to those kind of experiences, but I think again it is a way of and to your point, when you mentioned exhortation, being an encourager, these are just the little things that make a big difference when
Hmm.
somebody can see that they're being seen,
Hmm.
stories that you share,
Hmm.
right?
And
So
oh, okay. So I
no,
was
go ahead,
about
go
to
ahead,
say,
go ahead.
and people might see the brand now, but
Mm-hmm.
one thing I want people to know: for a long time, I lost my identity. When I moved here, yes, immediately I went back to school.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, I was 27 when I moved here.
Okay.
All my connections were in Nigeria. And I felt lost for a very long time. But
When you say not lost, in what sense?
I couldn't, for someone who was doing a lot, had my own very successful business before, I moved here. It was like starting all over again in a place where I had no connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for a long time, and also remember, I started a family. So it was kind of like a struggle trying to find what to do
Mm-hmm.
while being, a mom to two wonderful kids. Kudos to my husband. He supported a lot of things I did, which for a long time were not successful. Yeah.
Can you
So I,
share? Can you share a couple?
oh yes, I remember. So I tried being a stylist, a wardrobe stylist. It was okay, but it just didn't work. I tried bringing a Nigerian magazine, a fashion magazine, to the US. That was, the onset of things really getting digital, the internet. And it didn't really work out. And I still, because initially after going to fashion design school, I would help customize pieces for people in the US, which meant, I would make them myself. And
Make
people
them
just,
yourself, as in
oh,
you do
oh
the
yeah.
sewing.
Oh, I was sewing.
When did you learn how to sew? At what
So when
point?
I went back to the School of Fashion Design,
Okay.
you had to, learn how to sew, make
Mm-hmm.
your own patterns. And also when I finished from the School of Fashion Design, that
Mm-hmm.
was even while I was there, because I had a few customers who had known me from Nigeria. Maybe their cousin bought something for them, made something for them from me, right? Initially, when I came in, I came with all of my ready to wear pieces.
Okay.
Yeah, sold everything.
Mm-hmm.
And people would ask, oh, we have a wedding. Can you make this? And I started that also. But I loved it. It was fun, but it was a lot of hard work. And people were not ready to pay what I was worth.
For
Because
custom pieces, that's a
yeah,
lot. That's a lot of work.
they considered me a tailor. So it was a struggle, but in everything you do, you live and learn. So that I think it was for probably 4 or 5 years of me doing that. I learned a lot that I use now, right? So when I had my second child, I'm like, there's no way I can continue with this. People were not ready to pay, and I couldn't blame them. You will walk into a store, get a dress for $50, and then I wanted to make a custom piece for like 200, 300. But it was a lot of time. But I met a lot of people, made a lot of customers, even in the US. But after having my daughter, I'm like, this is not sustainable. And I went back to school in New York to study product development. And I know we're going to talk more about that. So it took me a while to find myself. And I mentioned that just so people know that we fall a lot of times, but get up.
Yes.
I don't know what was instilled in me. I just didn't give up. And then I didn't want to be just, someone's wife, someone's mother. I wanted to be Boye. I wanted my story. And my mom used to say that a lot. You have to have your story, because don't let you being a mother or a wife, overshadow everything that you are. So I just never gave up because I wanted my story. I wanted my career. My husband has been nothing but supportive, but that wasn't enough for me. I wanted my thing. So that kept me, getting up every time, I got knocked down.
It's interesting that you mentioned community, right? And that's another thing. And it's something that is unique to in this case, I'll say, okay, maybe Africans in the diaspora. It could, apply to any other diasporic communities, right? Or diaspora communities, where you are leaving the familiar and going to a new place where you might not know anybody. And it's not something that you can articulate. You have to experience it.
Yes.
Especially if you're coming from a place where you never had to worry about being in the minority. You never had to worry about who you needed to call to make things happen, or even if you didn't know, you at least 6 degrees of separation between you and the next person that can connect you to who you need to speak with. And then you come to a place, and it could happen even in a new job anywhere in the world, right? You now have to start learning the ropes. You have to start understanding the politics. You have to start understanding the value and appreciating the value of nurturing relationships. How you choose to nurture those relationships might vary depending on culture, right? So if you're coming from a place where on Sundays, that was where if you're a Christian like myself, you go to church. That is where you socialize. You see friends from school. You see friends from the neighborhood. You plan to do things. You don't think about it twice. When I was growing up, you went to visit friends, sometimes unannounced.
Unannounced.
But you move to a place where there is so much formality, as in, if you're coming to my home, please let me know. And not that they're being rude, but that's just the way things work. And it takes a little bit of getting used to. Because sometimes you're like, that's not the way I typically socialize. This is weird. Right? So your mind is trying to make all these adjustments. So, and then you're talking about, you're in a situation where your dad is like, I will support you. I will even provide you with the space. That does something where you have that support of community, family, loved ones, friends. And then you come to a place here and you're still trying to hang on to your identity. So you're like, okay, how many things am I juggling here?
Yeah, Chika. Oh my goodness. You hit the nail on the head. It was so when I said I lost myself, it was everything you spoke about. So I'm in Massachusetts, where normally a lot of Nigerians come to school, but they don't stay. People tend to leave, right? So there's, that Nigerians in the diaspora community is not as it's thriving, but not as you will see in Maryland, Atlanta,
Not as
Houston.
robust.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So not as robust. That was one. The second thing, it's super cold here. I remember, I think it was the first or second day I was, going to school. So I live in the suburbs. I hate driving. So I take the train in and it was cold. It was snowing and I started crying. Because I was just like, what did I get myself into? And I remember we called it the Roach Coach in Massachusetts. This little mobile food vendors. So
Okay.
the guy was selling like coffee, tea, and I was so tired, cold. So I went to him to get, a cup of tea because I just wanted something to warm me up. And I was crying. And I remember my tears were, you know, getting, they were solidified into ice. It was that cold. And he just took a look at me and gave me banana bread. Because it was just like, poor girl from Africa.
Mhm.
I was just like, what is this? I wanted to go back home to the warmth and safety of, my friends and my family. And my poor husband just felt bad, that he brought this pampered princess, to live this life.
Hmm.
Because he was used to it. He had been here since he was 17. So
I
he
see.
was used to, he's Nigerian, but he came here when he was 17. And it was a lot. I had a full life in Nigeria. Oh
Mm.
my goodness. My friends. I have wonderful friends, my family. And I was like, even the siblings I had in the US were far away.
Oh,
You know how it is in Nigeria, your siblings,
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
is near you.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot. It was a lot finding community. But one thing I always say, especially, if you're an immigrant, right? One thing I've realized is the culture might be different, but humanity is the same. One
That's an
thing I
excellent
will
point.
do, yeah, was be kind wherever I went. I was consistent in how I presented myself. And especially with the school of fashion design, to whom much is given, much is expected. That was what my mom used to say. Life is about give and take. They
Hmm.
showed up for me, so I would show up for them. And
So
that
when
was
you say show up for you, in what sense? How did you begin to establish new friendships, connections?
Yeah, so like I said, I always talk about Jim Hannan, who was the director of the School of Fashion Design. Quiet but lovely guy. I still saw him yesterday because it was a graduating class. There's usually a fashion show, but just a wonderful, quiet but nice guy. So I remember he was kind to me. I made friends. I remember Donna Bergman, who was a friend who lived, on the North Shore like I did. And being my Nigerian, very friendly self, I made friends with her. And I remember because I didn't drive, she would pick me up sometimes
That's
to
sweet.
school and back. And that was how I just, the culture was different, but I was authentic to myself. Within 5 minutes of you knowing me, I'm from Nigeria. I love being Nigerian and all. That was something, how we Nigerians are.
Mm.
I was unapologetic about me being Nigerian. And, but I was nice. I believe in being kind and gracious. That was one thing my mom, instilled in us. So I was myself. And initially people might be like, passionate, friendly, a bit aggressive because I know what I want and I'm going to go for it. You know how we Nigerians are.
Mm.
So initially people were like, this Nigerian girl. But eventually they saw my heart. Again, consistent with being kind, being human, being, gracious. So after some time, people connected. And also when I graduated from the School of Fashion Design, when I started applying for jobs, Jim Hannan was my reference because I had no one in the fashion industry, not even family per se, that I could use as a reference. And I emailed Jim, and he was like, sure, Bibi, of course. I will never forget that. I'm sure I've told him several times because I'm one of those people. I give people their flowers. I let people know how they've affected me, how they've shaped me. And he will, be my reference from time to time. If they had a job come up, they will send it to me. Oh yeah. Oh, even till today, they still do it at the School of Fashion Design. So if there's like a job, they send it to, students and alumni,
Hmm.
Yeah. So they will do that. And that was how I started building my connections in Boston. It was solely through the School of Fashion Design. The first job I got, and I realized, the apparel development, the technical side of fashion I want to learn about, it was because of that job.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, when you graduated from the school in Boston, you worked a little bit, and then you went
A
on
little bit.
to a
Yes.
little bit. Then you went on to New York.
Yeah. So while I was at that job, it was this company, they made like made to measure bras. So I came in as, their pattern maker and all, but I realized in mass production, that's a whole nother ball game, right? And it was while at that job I realized, mass production is different from fashion design. Oh, very different. And I will talk about it. They're two different things. Being a designer, a fashion designer, and an apparel developer, or a technical designer, two different things. So I'm like, the kitty me comes up again that, I need to know how to mass produce. And that was how I think, and it's still an industry where there's still a big void, for professionals who do this. And the only school I could find who was offering what I wanted was FIT New York. So with two kids under 8, every week I would go to New York,
So,
travel
was it a
to.
weekend program, or
It was
how did
during
that
the
work?
week. It was for like 3. No, the whole thing was for like. Well, it took me a year because
That's
I couldn't go
impressive. That's
full
impressive.
time. Yeah, because I had kids, I had a business. I was, yeah. So it took me a year, but I think if you went full time, it will probably take you 3 to 6 months. I'm not sure. So I would go in, every week, go in Tuesday, come back on Thursday. I remember my husband and my kids will wake up around 5 in the morning to pick me from the train station. Again, I say all of this so people know I just didn't get here.
Hmm.
I, I was grinding. I'm still grinding. And
I
I
think that,
remember,
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I remember the facilitator of the course, Professor Khan, wonderful man, said, Bibi, how do you do it? You come in from Boston. And I'm like, yeah, because I know what I want. And it was a life changing experience. It was. So I'll let you, yeah, try,
That's
yeah, tell
interesting. That's
me.
interesting. So, how would you compare your experience at um, the fashion? What do you go? Fashion
School of
design
Fashion Design.
School of Fashion Design in
Mhm.
Boston with FIT.
Hmm. Like I said, two different things. So as a fashion designer, it's more the creative part of your brain you're using, right?
So, is that
And
sketching?
so you do sketching, illustration, pattern making,
Hmm.
even the history of fashion, construction, couture details. You do, everything that makes you creative. You learn things that make you creative, right? But with technical design, it's a very scientific thing.
Oh.
Oh, very.
Hmm.
In the sense that 1 plus 1 has to be 2.
Okay.
When you're a creative person, 1 plus 1 doesn't have to be 2. When you're creative, your 1 plus 1 can be 7. Because when you're
Hmm.
a creative person, so far the basics, rules are meant to be broken. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Technical design, nah. your 1 plus 1 has to be 2.
So it's more precise.
Oh, very, very. So the reason why you go into a store or you go for a label and the size 4 fits you every time, it's a science.
I
The
see.
reason, yeah, how you grade, different, you make one design, you have different sizes. The reason why, as a brand, depending on your price range, your finishing has to be a certain way. So it's a different ball game entirely. So the difference I would say is, for me, the School of Fashion Design was very foundational, in the sense that I learned a lot that I was able to apply as a technical designer. Because
Okay.
you can start as a technical designer and not be a fashion designer. And
Okay.
there are loads of people like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, being a fashion designer and a technical designer, if my factory tells me, oh, we can't do something this way, I'm going to tell you 10 ways to do it, because I've actually sold. So I know how to do it. So it was different, but they coexist in my head, especially running my brand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people, especially because I teach at the School of Fashion Design, and I tell people there's so many ways to skin a cat in the fashion industry. For a long time before I started ChicNiCity, I was a consultant and I made good money helping people who had ideas bring it to fruition. So that's what a product developer does. You have an idea. How do I get this sketch? Or sometimes people don't even have sketches, it's just in their head. I bring it out and I make it into an actual product. So yeah.
So
So
I can. It seems as if what I'm getting from you is that you can be likened to a one-stop shop. So you're drawing from all your different experiences from back
yes.
in the days where you were having conversations with your
Hmm.
tailors who were making your
Hmm.
stylish pieces in Nigeria
Yeah,
while you were
yes.
in law school, and then even at those quote unquote failed businesses, when you said you were attempted to be a stylist, and when you attempted to I guess become a distributor of a magazine, a
Yes.
fashion magazine.
Yes.
People now it makes sense, but then you're just like, these are all disjointed pieces. At what point is it going to serve me? But it's to your point, no knowledge is lost,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
even when you're grinding it, and it might seem like, why am I even doing this? I'm even thinking the fact that now, with where you are as a consultant, product development, you're looking at standardization of processes, you're looking at quality control, you're looking at, okay, the quality of the finishing will determine the price points. And there's
Yes.
some thought that goes into that. Okay, how much of a markup is it going to be? And I'm even thinking now that, and hopefully we'll get to it, now that we're also thinking about, we're in the environment of tariffs.
Yes.
So sometimes when people see those highlights on Instagram, it's easy for you not to appreciate all the work that goes into putting in this beautiful, finished, crisp product,
Yes.
right? Um, and when you talked about, you said you teach at the School of Fashion Design.
Design. Yes.
All right. And you might be aware of this. So I recently was I just happened to come across some information. I don't know if you're familiar with. It's called SMEDAN. SMEDAN. So it's in Abuja, right?
Okay.
Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, and it's in
Mhm.
collaboration with the United Nations Development Program. And what they do, it's a garment and makerspace hub. So when you were
Okay.
talking about teaching, I was like, because I'll share the link with you at some point
Oh,
if you're
sure.
interested.
Please.
And what they do is, it's all kinds of apparel develop, people sewing, people doing weaving, and they're using 3D, what they call is it like a cricket machine to do the weaving. And
Hmm.
these are people that said that this is a gift for them because here it's powered by solar. So
Mm.
while you do the model that they use is you can pay a monthly subscription fee, or you can, and it's very affordable. And they were like, if I
Mm.
had to run my own shop, I would have to be dealing with, overhead. But here, all I
Mhm.
do is I come, and some of them are doing kaftans, some of them are
Mhm.
doing dresses, some of them are doing, and they said over there, it's also an opportunity for them to network. So let's say somebody
Yes.
gets an order and they can't fulfill it, they can say, okay, if you have the resources, go ahead. And I thought,
Mhm.
that's an amazing idea. I don't
Yes.
know if there are a lot of maker spaces of that nature across the country, but I can see where, especially with the level of skill, sometimes we have so much raw talent,
Yes.
trying to harness all that talent, because if you're not careful, you lose all of it. People just decide, you know what, I'm not even going to bother, I'm just going to go look for something that will put food on the table. But
On the
right now,
table,
yeah.
yes.
So when you were talking about teaching, I'm like, oh, those are opportunities.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't, it's somebody else that can appreciate what we're bringing to the table, because it comes so easily to us that we're like,
Mhm.
well, you should know that.
Oh, yeah. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Chika, you mentioned a few things that, especially being a very proud Nigerian, right?
Mm.
There are things I'm thinking about already in the process of, starting things that will allow the rich human resources we have in Nigeria to even gain from this global world of fashion. Because, as Nigerians, we're high consumers of fashion, and we're also high producers of fashion, but are the standards global?
I see. That's a
So I will tell you of a story. And I say because initially I was a bit not upset, but I was a bit, I don't even know what word to use, but I'll share the
salty.
story. It wasn't even sulky, but it was just a
No, I
bit,
said salty, salty.
yeah, salty. Salty, yeah. Salty might be the word, because it wasn't that I was upset, but at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time, I was like, huh. So last October,
Hmm.
I was on a panel for at the Lagos Fashion Week, talking about how Nigerians can get their products on a global stage, sponsored by the US aid. And so while I was talking about my experience, I was asked, where do you produce your pieces? I've never been ashamed of where I produce my pieces, which is not in Nigeria. Not because I don't want to, right? But the objective of my starting my brand was to make money. And I'm not ashamed of that. And I've worked, before I even started ChicNiCity, I've worked with brands where they're in Nigeria or in Africa. They go for trade shows. And buyers expect these pieces to be made in Africa, but sometimes are not ready for what will be delivered, right? And I remember having this brand. She had gotten orders, a big brand in Nigeria. She had gotten orders, made it in Nigeria, sent it to different countries in the Western world, and everything was returned.
Any reason why?
Quality, quality
The
control,
finishing.
standards. Yeah. A lot of things, not even just the finishing, but a lot of things go into delivering products that can be sold at stores in the Western world. So she approaches me, and we produced her collection. Nothing was returned. Everything sold, right?
So what was done differently this time? Just, in a nutshell.
Because we're doing it the proper way. As a product developer, I knew everything to do. I knew what they were looking for. I knew the standards. In Nigeria, and things are getting better, don't get me wrong, because Nigerians are smart people. So things are getting better. So that changed. and everything sold. And we continue to work with her, you know, with her mass production, which can be, capital intensive. But what was different was that she just had tailors making stuff. A fashion designer, a creative person who had
Mm-hmm.
no knowledge of the technical bit. So that was what we helped her with. When I'm dealing with a client as a technical person, I don't design for you. I just execute your vision. That's all I do. In fact, when people ask me about my opinions when it comes to their designs, I'm like, nah, I will only tell you what will work for you in regards to your target price and the it being commercial.
Getting them into like a big box retail
Yes.
store.
So back to this story. And so I was asked, where do you produce? And I told them in Asia. And I remember someone, after the whole conversation, and it was a question and answer thing, someone said, oh, we love what you're doing. Because I told them about how I got into, big box, stores and everything it entailed. And I've been in this industry at the time I got into the big box store, probably over 10 years. And I knew what I had to do. All the, everything is a science, even down to how you pack your things, how many things you put into a box. It's a lot, which we call, post production processes. And for me, being in the game for that long, I knew how hard it was. So I said, so the one woman stands up and she said, oh, yeah, we love everything you're doing, but you should produce in Nigeria.
Did she say why?
She just felt, oh, I should encourage, the economy and all. And I said,
Which is beautiful.
yeah. I
Beautiful,
said,
but
yes,
yeah, go ahead.
I would love to do it. I plan on doing it, but I also know what it entails. And apart from the fact that we do not have the skill, we also do not have that hub, that manufacturing hub. It is a hub. I tell people before I could even ship my stuff out of the factory into the US, I was inspected 2 times. So the retailer who's giving you a purchase order sends
Hmm.
an independent quality control company.
Oh, I see.
Oh yes.
Hmm.
You fail the inspection, you're paying thousands of dollars back to that retailer. So here are the things, I knew about. And I knew, the hub didn't exist. Even to get someone, say I wanted to produce in Nigeria, to get that inspection company to come will probably cost me $15,000 as opposed to $2,000 because there's a hub for them
Hmm.
in Asia.
I see.
So there are a lot of things. Could I go into details? No. All I said was that I would love to produce, but I know what it entails. And my objective was to make money. I want to support the Nigerian economy. And like I said to you, when I think something, I want to do it because it wasn't an empty promise that I really want to support, my home country.
Mm-hmm.
So, which brings me to the fact that, you mentioned the hub. There are
Mm-hmm.
things I'm trying to put into place where number one, we can transfer skills. And I remember when I was on the stage, I said, look, let me tell you something. This, the younger generation, you do not have to have a brand to make money. For a long time, I worked as an apparel developer. I made money. I made mistakes on other people's dime. And it's a less capital intensive thing to do to have the skill. Because once you have the skill, you
Mm-hmm.
can be a freelancer. There's so many platforms now that you can make dollars for someone in Nigeria if you have the skill. So that's one thing I'm already working on, how we can transfer skills to be a pattern maker, to be a quality control person, to be a
Mm.
colorist, to be an illustrator, to be, a technical designer. So those are the things because you do not need to have a space. sewing machines to make good money in fashion. Even I teach that in the US. I teach my students in the US. Start with, being a pattern maker, a technical designer, learn on the job. And then eventually you might start your brand. I know a lot of colleagues who are like vice president of technical design in companies in the America, in the US, and they're making a lot of money. So eventually you might even decide, not a brand, but I still have a career in fashion.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can always consult.
Yes. And so
Mhm.
that is
Mhm.
one thing I definitely want for Nigeria, for us to start transferring that knowledge of the skills. So eventually, when we have enough people, a hub can be created where
I
we
see.
have pattern designers, quality
Mhm.
control, people. And the final thing I'm looking to do is start a company that does quality control. So when and a third party independent, company. So when people get orders in Africa, especially West Africa, we come in to inspect. Prior to that, we're training companies on what to do. So when we come to inspect, you can pass inspection. So
Interesting.
those are the things I'm looking at. Because for me, again, like I was salty, but in a positive
Yeah.
way. I think
And that
of,
was a teachable moment for
oh yeah,
that kind of audience. They might
yes,
not even have been aware. Because I was even going to ask you that, as far as you know, how many other people have your kind of experience as a, and I mean in Nigeria. I don't know. Are there that? I'm sure you can count them on your fingers. I'll be surprised if they are a lot. So obviously, what you are um, planning to put together, whereby there is knowledge transfer, I can see where there will be a large market for that,
oh
especially with
yes,
the younger generation, or even people who are already in the industry. It
yes,
doesn't hurt to pick up one or two additional skills. It even
yes,
makes you more marketable, right?
yes. And even
Mm-hmm.
for brands in Nigeria, it will be beneficial to them to
Mm-hmm.
have people who are skilled. And like
Mm-hmm.
I said, Nigerians were go-getters. So they're people already, because now we've made our fashion global. So people are beginning to realize that, okay, if I don't want my product returned, I have to do better. So things are getting better, right? Is it the best? No, even in the US, this skill is still needed. So even there's a void here because in the US, for a long time, you didn't need that, skill or knowledge to be a technical designer or product developer because you had your office in New York, steps away, your factory or your, atelier was there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This skill or this profession started because companies started moving their manufacturing to countries where people didn't necessarily speak English, and that started that job description. So even in the US, it's still a needed skill, which is why SFD brought me on to teach about product development, technical design, and because even they realized that it was something a void they needed to fill and teach at the school.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one student just come back to me. She took my technical design class because she wanted a job. I helped her out. She got the job because in Massachusetts, we have quite a number of garment stroke apparel companies. When I do this, meaning they're not so much fashion. Adidas is here. New Balance is here. Timberland is here. Life is Good is here. And they run it as a business, not a creative thing. So there's, yeah, a huge void to be filled, and the opportunities are a lot. So many ways to make money in the fashion industry.
I'm learning a lot. I might have become one of your students. Who knows? I might sign up for one of your classes.
Please. Yes.
And so I'm even thinking about the gap you're filling. In your case, you had to make that train ride from Boston to New York. And now you are filling that gap, so to speak, at the School of Fashion Design in Boston
Yes.
because
Yes.
you're offering a a course that wasn't on the curriculum or part of the curriculum
Mm-hmm.
when you were a student. Is that correct?
Yes, yes,
Ah,
yes. Very
okay.
correct. Yeah.
Very, 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 very. Oh, that's excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now we're gonna wrap this up, but I just have a few things, and one of them is the impact of tariffs, especially for a lot of businesses who are working with suppliers outside of the US. In the fashion world, what does that look like,
Hmm.
in terms of impact? Because, you can say, well, I can source my fabric here in the US, but I'm sure your buttons, your zippers, are you also sourcing them here? So sometimes on the outside, people, if you're not in the industry, you're not even thinking about the little things that make a difference, that add to that eventually are part of that finished product that you so appreciate and you so enjoy. And
Mm-hmm.
where these different pieces or parts are being sourced from. I read an article where this particular business owner, I don't know if he makes shoes, but he did an A and B test, sort of, whereby he sourced all his items from outside the US, which is typically how he runs his business. And then he sourced items and then made two versions. Obviously, he said the one he made here in the US was more expensive, and nobody
Mm-hmm.
bought that version, but everybody went for. So at the end of the day, as much as we are like, oh yeah, locally made, how much is it going to cost you?
Yes,
Because
yes.
ultimately, people are looking at their pockets and saying, maybe I need to reprioritize what's important here, and maybe this is not it for now.
Yes. Chika, so this the tariff thing.
Hmm.
I will start with this. As a brand owner,
Mm-hmm.
a fashion label, you have to cost properly. Because I see this with creatives all over the world. We do not cost properly our pieces. And I learned this when I went to FIT because costing is a course you take. How do you cost appropriately so you're making money and you're not failing as a business? Because the fashion industry is one of the toughest industries. Fast fashion, people, wanting to change their looks and thereby buying a lot because it's cheap, right? So, my first thing to say as a creative, you have to learn how to cost properly. Because if you're not careful, even the little profits you were making with the tariffs, you might not be breaking even. And I've worked with a lot of people where I'm like, you were not making money with the prices you had, both in the US and outside the US. Costing is key, or else within 3 years, 90% of fashion brands fail. So, costing is key. If you've been costing properly with the tariffs coming, especially as a small business, you might be able to weather the storm. It's not ideal because we're already struggling as small businesses. As a small business, unlike Walmart, who makes millions of pieces and they can negotiate with their manufacturers, we can't.
Hmm.
We can't. Walmart has the upper hand in the sense that they pull their business, that factory folds up. So they can go back. Even with that, I read, even the people in Asia, they're like, there's a limit to how much we can reduce how much we're making the species, because if you know of the fashion industry, the profit margins are small. So it's more in how many,
Volume.
it's
Mm-hmm.
more the quantity, the
Mm-hmm.
volume that, makes the difference. So even the factories are like, there's a limit to how much we can reduce, how much we're manufacturing. So for us small businesses, it's tough. It's going to be tough.
Mm.
Um, I haven't had anything come in since the tariffs, came about. So I'm about to find out, but because I cost very well, I'm able to absorb it, you know. Costing is key. That's what I'm
Mm.
just going to tell a small business owner.
I
Costing is
see.
key. Initially, people might see your product and think, why is yours more expensive?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A tip I give people is, if you're a small business owner, you start high and then come low price wise.
How does that work when you say start high? So, supposing you start pricing your items at $10.
So if you're making an item for $10, if you cost properly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I won't go into it that much. If you
Mm-hmm.
cost
Mm-hmm.
properly,
Mm-hmm.
add your cost of goods,
Mm-hmm.
expenses,
Mm-hmm.
overhead.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way we cost where, say, okay, after you add everything, you come to say $50, and I'm just throwing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if you
Mm-hmm.
everything cost you, actual cost of the garment is $10. You add your shipping, the duties you pay, overhead, you come to $50. You still have to, you know, mark
Mm-hmm.
it up.
Markup, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's a term in the industry.
Okay, I
So
see.
even when we give stuff to wholesalers, they're marking up.
Yes.
So you
Mm-hmm.
have to mark it up, and you will see it if you go on a website. It starts at, say, $200, and then every 6 weeks for the big retailers, there's a sale.
I see. I see.
Hmm.
I see.
So
Okay.
you have, yeah, you start
Mm-hmm.
up there and see what people are. You start up there. Will be people who will always buy at that price. People,
Okay. I see. I see.
and then you start playing around with, how you do your sale and see what people are comfortable with.
I see.
But
But
at the
that's an
same
excellent.
time, yeah, the lowest price has to be with, your cost of goods, overhead. So it's a science to cost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you have to cost
I see.
appropriately, or else you're not making money.
I see. You won't believe it. It's been over an hour, but we're gonna wrap this up because I'm sure you
I
can keep on
know.
talking. You can share a little bit. I see you have a piece in the background that looks like a pair of, is it shorts? Is it a two piece?
It's a dress, but for some reason I should have put something with a pattern. Why don't I talk about what I'm wearing?
Okay.
Because this
Is that a
isn't
shirt or a
showing.
dress?
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's not showing, but this is like a short mini kaftan dress. It's a
Okay.
very chic cocktail dress. It's been a wonderful seller for us.
Really? And it's
Oh,
available on your website?
yes, it is. It's called
Okay.
the Theo dress.
Okay.
There's something very chic but comfortable about it. So I had it up, but I didn't realize that it might not translate well because, yeah,
It looks,
yeah,
what type of fabric is that?
it's like it's transparent with lurex threads.
I
I
see.
don't know if you can see it properly, but I'm going
Hmm.
to talk about this
All right.
t-shirt dress I'm wearing that says "Chic
Chic.
happens."
Oh, okay. I can only see
Yeah,
chic. Okay, chic happens. So
happens.
what type of fabric is that? Is that cotton?
So it's
Jersey? Polo?
yeah, neat cotton
Hmm.
jersey,
Okay.
and this piece I we started this line last year because I wanted pieces again,
Hmm.
spoke to my heritage, but at the same time, things I could wear in my dynamic lifestyle. So it's almost like a kaftan t-shirt. It's
All right.
short. You can wear it alone, wear with jeans. But that is, when you think about kaftan and bubus, you think of West Africa. So I
Hmm.
blended that, kaftan, bubu silhouette into a t-shirt. And
Oh,
then I have a lot to say. because I talk smack a lot. So it was one of the things, chic happens, things happen, work with it. And so this led to, again, just, blending my two worlds. It's been
Mm.
a huge seller for us.
Oh, good,
It,
good, good.
people, also for me, starting ChicNiCity, we wanted to reach everyone, women of all races. Oh, I lost you. Uh-oh.
For some reason, I don't know. We got
Yeah, I was just about to send you a message.
yeah, but I think you were talking about your that's available on the website, correct?
Yes, it is. Let me see
Okay.
if I can.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
this because
nice.
of the
Yes.
it's been a bestseller. So, like I said, ChicNiCity. I also wanted it to be a love letter of who I am to
Hmm.
people in the US. I didn't want it to be just only Nigerians, only people from Africa. No, this is me
Mm-hmm.
sharing my culture. Like we will share food and music. Fashion
Mm-hmm.
also is a way to share who you are, encourage other people to experience this culture through fashion, which was what I was trying to say when I
Yeah,
was making my
that's
pitch.
great. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's mhm.
I see that we don't have so much time, but this
Yes,
has been wonderful. I'm going to
yes,
do
thank
like
you.
what do you call it? Uh, is it a fire round? I've forgotten what the term
Rapid
is.
fire.
Yeah, rapid fire session. So I'm
Okay.
going to ask you, solid white button down cotton shirt or a pair of jeans?
Jeans, because then I can wear colorful tops with it.
Wonderful. Family get together game night or a day trip to the beach with friends?
Family night. I love family and friends. Yeah, and us talking
Sketch a
smack.
design or make a dress from a sketch?
Make a dress from a sketch.
Oh, really? So you rather sew than sketch?
Yeah, I'm so I've always said this. I'm more like I execute. I don't
Okay.
like sketching per se. Yeah, I
Okay.
like the finished product. So I would rather make a dress.
All right. A day trip to the Akwete or Ashoke Weaving Co-op in Nigeria or a day trip to the Guggenheim in New York City?
Oh, I created
Oh,
community in
Ashoke Co-op,
Nigeria. Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, work in Nigeria. Yeah.
All right. Generosity or kindness?
Wow, that's a good one. I will go with kindness.
Because I think you can be
Kindness
generous and kind. You can be generous in your
and not
kindness.
kind.
Yeah, you can be generous in your you can be kind in your generosity,
Yes.
right? I'm trying to.
I
All
get
right.
so you can be generous but hold it over people when you do something for
Yes,
them.
yes. But kindness can encompass a whole lot of
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Listen to a podcast or read a hard copy book.
Read a hard copy book.
All right. Abuja or Lagos?
Oh, Lagos all day. Hey.
Tomo Eko.
Omoeko, yes.
All right. Ready to wear or ready to sew?
Or ready to wear.
Really?
Mhm.
Really? Why ready to wear?
Because maybe because I do that, I have more
Mm,
control.
okay. Okay.
So yeah, maybe it's more because of my career. I know what I'm getting when it's ready to wear.
Okay. Well, this has been wonderful. I've really learned a lot. I really
Oh,
appreciate you're being very generous with your knowledge and really giving us a peek into what I'm sure is a very vibrant industry
mm,
where you get to celebrate, where you get to share a little bit of yourself through your work, and also the
yes.
fact that you're moving in this direction of knowledge transfer. I think that's quite commendable. And do
Thank
keep
you.
us posted. I will have your information in the comments section, in the description section, and hopefully we'll have you back in the future, when you have probably launched your program or
Yes.
curriculum, so that you can provide us with updates. So
Yes.
it's been lovely, learning from lawyer to from what I say, from legal to fashion luminary,
Yes. I love
right?
your title. People check out the title. I love
Yes,
that.
yes, yes. So we've how you started off in law school, ended up running a side hustle while you're in law school, also coming to the U.S., and then identifying that okay, you needed to upgrade your skill set, and
Yes.
even at that point in your career where you had a fully functional business, you still realized that um, studying about fashion design and then going into even product development, where
Mhm.
you were going into New York how many times a week, just to make sure that you got the knowledge that you needed to be able to deliver, a top quality product. And I think it comes across in ChicNiCity, and also maybe your other endeavors. So thank you again. And
You're welcome.
hopefully it won't be too long before we begin to hear big things. Congratulations again on your appointment as a
Thank
member
you,
of the board of
Chica.
trustees of
Thank
the
you.
fashion school in Boston. And
Thank
I'll
you,
talk to
Chica.
you soon. All right.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so
You're
much fun.
welcome.
Thank
It was
you.
so much fun. Yes, I do agree. I do agree. All right. Bye.
Bye.